I betrayed the only person who believed in me. I've said that sentence out loud maybe 3 times in my life, and each time it scraped my throat raw, not because the words are difficult to pronounce, but because they're true. And some truths sit in your chest like shrapnel. You learn to live around them, but you never stop feeling the edges. His name was Jerome Patterson, Mr. Patterson to everyone at the youth center, but he told me once when I was 16 and angry at the whole world that I could call him Jerome if I wanted. Only when we're talking real though, he said. When we're just shooting the breeze, it's Mr. Patterson. When we're going deep, it's Jerome. That way you'll always know which conversation we're in. I thought that was corny at the time. Now I understand he was teaching me something about boundaries and trust that I was too young and too damaged to appreciate. Jerome ran the Eastside Community Youth Center in Birmingham, a squat brick building sandwiched between a betting shop and a fried chicken place. It wasn't fancy. The basketball hoops in the back were rusted, the pool table had a permanent lean to the left, and the heating worked maybe 60% of the time in winter. But it was ours. The kids from the estate, the ones the schools had given up on, the ones whose parents were gone or checked out or doing their own time. We had that building, and we had Jerome. He was 53 when I met him, tall, broad-shouldered with a shaved head that had gone gray at the temples and a voice that could fill a room without shouting. He'd done 12 years inside for armed robbery when he was young. He never hid that. Told us straight up the first time he met any of us. And after he got out, he'd spent the next 20 years building the center from nothing. I did wrong, he used to say. Paid for it. Now I'm doing right. That's all any of us can do. Choose the next thing. I was 15 when my mom dropped me at the center for the first time. She was between jobs, which was her polite way of saying she was between boyfriends who paid the bills. And she needed somewhere for me to be after school that wasn't the streets. I walked in with my hood up, headphones in, every line of my body screaming, "Don't talk to me." Jerome talked to me anyway, not aggressively, not with the fake cheerfulness of teachers or social workers. He just sat down across from me in the common room, set a cup of tea on the table between us and said, "You don't have to be here if you don't want to, but if you stay, there's tea and there's table tennis. Your call." I stayed for the table tennis. At first, then I stayed for Jerome. He saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. That's the thing about people like him. They have this radar for potential hiding underneath anger, for intelligence masking itself as indifference. I was failing every subject at school, getting into fights on my second official warning for truancy. To the teachers, I was a statistic waiting for it. Nobody had ever suggested I could be a lawyer. Nobody had ever suggested I could be anything except trouble. Jerome started working with me one-on-one, not tutoring exactly. He wasn't a teacher, and I would have rejected anything that formal, but mentoring. He'd give me books, not the ones from school, but ones he thought I'd actually read. Malcolm X's autobiography, The 48 Laws of Power, stuff with teeth. He got me a weekend job helping maintain the center, cleaning, fixing things, setting up for events. Minimum wage, under the table at first, then proper when I turned 16. It wasn't about the money, though the money helped. It was about being trusted with something, being given responsibility. "You show up on time," he said one Saturday when I'd arrived 10 minutes early, and that tells me something. You could be anywhere right now, could be with your mates getting high, could be nicking stuff from the retail park, but you're here. That means something's working. I didn't know how to respond to praise that wasn't sarcastic. I just shrugged and picked up the mop. By the time I was 17, I'd turned a corner. My attendance at school went up. My grades crawled from failing to mediocre to almost respectable. I even started thinking about college, not university. That seemed like another planet, but one of the vocational colleges where I could learn a trade. Electrician maybe, something practical, something that would get me out of the estate. Jerome co-signed the idea so hard it almost embarrassed me. "An electrician makes good money," he said. "Honest work, always in demand. You could start your own business one day, hire other people, build something." "When did you get out?" "Last week." He dropped onto the sofa like he owned the place. "Been sorting a few things, reconnecting with people." My mom fussed over him, made him tea, asked about his mom. My Aunt Lorraine, who lived on the other side of the city and had stopped speaking to most of the family years ago. Dwayne gave vague answers, charming as ever. When she went to bed, he got down to business. "I've got a thing going," he said, leaning forward. "Nothing crazy, just a bit of redistribution." Redistribution? I knew what he meant. I just wanted to make him say it. Moving product. he said. Not street-level stuff, not me standing on a corner. This is logistics, supply chain. Your boy Dwayne's moved up. Good for you, I said neutrally. I'm out of that. He laughed. Out of what? You were never in it. You were 15 years old helping me count cash that one time. That doesn't make you a gangster, Marcus. Exactly, I said, and I'm staying that way. He looked at me for a long moment. That calculating look I remembered from when we were kids. Dwayne was always 3 moves ahead, always figuring angles. I hear you've been hanging around that youth center, he said. That old man, Patterson. Jerome, I said automatically. Right, Jerome. The way he said the name was mocking. You know he grassed, right? Back in the day. That's why he only did 12 when he should have done 20. I felt a flash of anger. That's not true. Ask around, Dwayne shrugged. I'm not judging. Everyone talks eventually. I'm just saying don't put him on a pedestal. He's done more for me than anyone, I said, and I heard my voice getting tight. More than you, more than anyone in this family. Dwayne held up his hands. Easy, little cuz. I'm not here to argue about your father figure. I'm here because I need help with something specific, something you're good at. I'm not moving drugs, I said. Not drugs, he said. Information. He laid it out over the next hour. He'd been running a small crew, doing organized burglaries, not random smash and grabs, but targeted jobs, commercial properties, storage units, places that had things worth taking and security weak enough to breach. What he needed was someone on the inside of the community, someone who could tell him which local businesses were struggling, which ones might have valuable stock, which owners were careless about alarms and cash handling. Someone who moved through the area without suspicion. You know everyone, Dwayne said. You work at that center, you hear things. Old Patterson probably knows every shop owner within 2 miles. What time they close when they're on holiday, whose marriage is falling apart so they're distracted. That's gold, Marcus. You want me to spy on my own community? I said flatly. I want you to share information that's already public, he corrected. You're not the one breaking in. You're not even pointing us at anyone. You just tell me what you know, and I make sure you're compensated. He named a figure that made my head spin, more than I'd make in 6 months at the youth center, enough to actually save, to move out, to put down a deposit on a flat of my own, instead of sleeping in my childhood bedroom while my mom cycled through loser boyfriends. I can't, I said. Jerome doesn't have to know, Dwayne cut in. That's the point. You keep doing what you're doing. Volunteering, studying, being the golden boy. This is just a side thing, a business arrangement between family. He left that night without an answer, but he left the offer on the table. I wish I could tell you I never considered it, that I went straight to Jerome the next day and told him everything, that I was stronger than the pull of easy money and family loyalty, and the voice in my head that still, after everything, wondered if I was really cut out for the straight path. I considered it for 2 weeks. I lay awake at night doing the maths, the money, the risk, the look on Jerome's face if he ever found out. I thought about my mom, still working double shifts at the care home, still never quite making rent without my contribution. I thought about the electrician course, the apprenticeship fees, the years of graft ahead of me before I'd be making real money. And I thought about Dwayne's sneer when he talked about Jerome, the implication that I was naive for trusting him, the way he made my whole transformation sound like a phase I'd grow out of. I wish the decision had been harder. I wish there'd been some dramatic turning point where I wrestled with my conscience and came out victorious. But the truth is, I said yes on a Tuesday evening, sitting in Dwayne's car outside a Tesco Express, because he caught me at a weak moment and I was tired of being broke. Just information, I said, as if repeating the caveat made it less of a betrayal. Nothing that points directly at anyone. And if anyone gets hurt, no one gets hurt, Dwayne said. These are insured businesses, Marcus. We're not robbing grannies. We're redistributing from corporations and careless shop owners, victimless. I knew that wasn't true. I knew there was no such thing as victimless crime. But I let myself believe it because the alternative was admitting what I was actually doing. Over the next 3 months, I became what I'd sworn I'd never be, a snake. I didn't do it clumsily. That's the worst part. I was good at it. I'd always been good at reading people, at collecting information, at filing away details that seemed unimportant until they weren't. Jerome had seen that ability in me and tried to point it toward something constructive. Now, I was using it to mark targets. I'd have conversations at the youth center, casual chats with the volunteers, the local parents who dropped their kids off, the business owners who sometimes sponsored events or donated supplies. "How's business?" I'd ask, like I cared. "Saw your shop was closed early last week. Everything okay?" Must be tough with the new alarm system regs, right? Those things are expensive. People talked to me because they trusted me, because Jerome trusted me, and Jerome vouched for me, and that vouching extended like a halo to everyone in his orbit. I'd pass the information to Dwayne in bits and pieces. "This news agent keeps the week's takings in a safe under the counter until Friday. That storage unit place had cleaned him out, and he didn't know if he could afford to reopen." Jerome put a hand on his shoulder and said, "We'll figure something out. The community looks after its own." I was standing 6 feet away, and I wanted to disappear into the floor. The money came in, though. Dwayne was good to his word. Cash in brown envelopes, passed in car parks and alleyways, never the same spot twice. I stashed it in a shoebox under my bed like a cliche, telling myself I was saving for the future, for my escape. At night, I started having dreams where Jerome found out. He wouldn't yell in the dreams. He'd just look at me, and the disappointment on his face was worse than any anger. I started avoiding him during the day, making excuses not to stay late at the center, claiming I had coursework, exam prep, family stuff. He noticed, of course he noticed everything, but he gave me space. "You're 18, he said once when I brushed off another invitation to sit and talk. "You're supposed to be pulling away a bit. Just don't pull so far you forget where home is." Home. He called the center home. He meant I was part of something, a family. I nodded and made my escape before he could see my face. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't stay contained. It's not a single act you can quarantine. It bleeds into everything. Your sleep, your relationships, your sense of self. I started snapping at my mom for no reason. I picked fights with friends. I stopped studying properly. What was the point when I had cash coming in that made legitimate work look like a joke? My grades slipped. My attendance slipped. The electrician dream started to feel like a story I'd told myself. Jerome tried to reach me. He left voicemails I didn't return. He sent texts I answered with one-word replies. One evening, he showed up at my mom's flat, and I hid in my room like a child, pretending I wasn't home while she made apologetic excuses. "He's going through something," I heard her tell him through the thin walls. "You know how teenagers are." "He's not a teenager anymore," Jerome said. "He's a young man making choices, and I'm worried about the choices I'm seeing." I pressed my palms against my eyes so hard I saw stars. The confrontation, the first one, the one that should have stopped everything, came in January. Jerome caught me outside the center one evening. I hadn't been inside in weeks, but I was meeting Dwayne nearby and had cut through the car park out of habit. "Marcus?" His voice stopped me mid-step. "We need to talk." I turned. He was standing by the back entrance, arms crossed, that look on his face that used to make me want to be better. Now it just made me want to run. "I'm busy," I said. "I don't care." He walked toward me. "Something's wrong, since I'm the only person who seems to give a damn whether you throw your life away." "You're not my father," I said, and I watched the words land. He flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. "No," he agreed quietly. "I'm not. I'm just the man who's watched you become someone worth believing in. And I'm watching you become someone else now, someone I don't recognize. Maybe this is who I always was," I said. "Maybe you just saw what you wanted to see." "That's not true, and you know it." He stepped closer. "What's going on, Marcus? Is it money? Is it your mom? Is someone pressuring you?" Dwayne, the word was right there. I could have said it. I could have broken down, told him everything, let him help me find a way out. That's what he was offering, even if he didn't know the specifics. A way out. Instead, I said, "Nothing's going on. I just grew up. Sorry if that's inconvenient for your little rescue project." I saw the hurt flash across his face before he controlled it. "You're not a project," he said. "You never were." "Right," I said. "I'm a success story. Something to put in your grant applications. Local man saves troubled youth, proves system works." makes good copy. Is that what you think this is? His voice was rough now. After everything? I don't think anything, I said. I'm just living my life. You should try it. I walked away. He didn't follow. That night, I met Dwayne and gave him information about the community center itself, the layout, the cash box from fundraising events, the fact that Jerome sometimes kept petty cash in his office overnight because the bank was closed by the time he finished. Not the center, I said, even as I described it. That's off limits. Dwayne smiled. Of course, just good to know the landscape. I should have known better. I did know better, but I was so deep in by then that one more piece of information felt like nothing. The break-in happened 3 weeks later. I found out the way everyone else did. Jerome called an emergency meeting of all the volunteers and regulars. I almost didn't go. I was barely involved anymore. This feels personal, like someone knew exactly where to look. His eyes swept the room. For a fraction of a second, they landed on me. I couldn't tell if he knew or if I was just projecting, but something passed between us in that moment, something that felt like the beginning of the end. After the meeting, I cornered Dwayne on a street corner. You said the center was off limits, I hissed. He shrugged, infuriatingly calm. Things change. The opportunity presented itself. You used the information I gave you, information I specifically said. You gave it to me, Marcus. What I did with it is my business. He lit a cigarette, cupped his hand around the flame. Don't act surprised. You knew who I was when you got in. This is different, I said. This is Jerome. This is a man who runs a struggling youth center in a rundown building, Dwayne interrupted. A building that was easy to get into and had stuff worth taking. You think I'm going to leave that alone because you've got feelings about it? I wanted to hit him. My hands were actually shaking with the urge. If he finds out I'm connected to this, then you'd better make sure he doesn't, Dwayne said. Because if I go down, little cuz, I'm not going alone. He walked away, and I stood there in the cold, understanding for the first time the full scope of what I'd done. The investigation into the break-in was handled by the police, who were predictably useless. There was no CCTV footage that caught anything useful, no fingerprints that led anywhere. The case went into the pile of unsolved property crimes that nobody had resources to pursue. But Jerome knew. I don't know how. Maybe he'd been watching me more closely than I realized. Maybe my behavior after the meeting gave me away. I couldn't look him in the eye, kept making excuses to leave, practically vibrated with guilt every time the break-in was mentioned. Or maybe he just knew. The way people who love you sometimes know the worst things about you before you confess them. He called me 3 days after the break-in, not to the center, to his house, a small terraced place about a mile away where he lived alone. I'd been there twice before. For birthday dinners he'd insisted on hosting when I had nowhere else to celebrate. Sit, he said when I arrived, pointing to a chair at his kitchen table. I sat. He poured 2 cups of tea, his solution for everything, and sat across from me. For a long moment he just looked at me, and I felt myself shrinking under that gaze. I'm going to ask you something, he said finally, and I need you to tell me the truth. Not the truth you think I want to hear. Not the truth that keeps you safe. The actual truth. My throat closed up. Okay, I managed. Did you have anything to do with what happened to the center? The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I could have lied. I could have denied it, feigned outrage, accused him of paranoia. He had no proof, not really. It would have been my word against his suspicion. But something in his eyes, the way he was looking at me like he already knew, like the question was just a courtesy, a chance for me to choose honesty, broke something loose in me. Yes, I said. The word hung in the air between us. He nodded slowly, like he'd been bracing for it, but it still hurt. Tell me how. So I told him everything. Dwayne's return, the offer, the information I'd gathered, the targets I'd helped mark, the money I'd taken, the way I'd justified it to myself at every step. He didn't interrupt, didn't react visibly, just listened, his hands wrapped around his tea, his face carefully still. When I finished, he said, "The news agent, Mr. Okonkwo, that was you too?" I gave them the information, I said. I didn't. You gave them the information, he repeated. That's what you did. I'm sorry, I said, and the words crumbled in my mouth. I know that doesn't fix it. I know. You're right, he said. It doesn't. I waited for the explosion, the anger, the disappointment, the speech about how I'd thrown everything away. Part of me wanted it, wanted him to rage at me because rage would be easier than what I saw in his face. Instead, he stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street. I spent 20 years building that center, he said quietly. Not the building, the trust, the relationships. Getting people to believe that just because someone comes from where you come from, where I come from, doesn't mean they're destined to fail. Every kid I worked with, every parent who let me mentor their child, every business owner who donated, they were all taking a chance, trusting that the center was safe, that the people in it were on their side. He turned back to me. And you used that trust to mark them for robbery. I couldn't speak. Do you understand what you've broken? He asked. It's not just the center. It's not just the money or the equipment. It's me, my reputation, my relationships. If people find out that someone I vouched for, someone I brought into the community, was feeding information to criminals, he stopped, shook his head. I was so proud of you, he said, and his voice cracked. I told everyone about you. Marcus, my success story, the kid who turned it around, living proof that people can change. He laughed, a broken sound. What a joke. I can make it right, I said desperately. I can pay back the money. You think this is about money? He stared at me. You think I'm angry about 800 pounds? Then what do you want me to do? I was crying now, which horrified me. I hadn't cried in years. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was hard in a way I'd never heard from him. You stole my trust, Marcus, used it to hurt the very people I dedicated my life to protecting, and you did it for money, for your cousin's approval. Because it was easier than doing the hard work of building something honest. He walked to the front door and opened it. I want you to leave, he said, and I want you to understand that what we had, whatever you thought we had, is done. I can't be your mentor anymore. I can't vouch for you. I can't pretend I don't know what you're capable of. Jerome, Mr. Patterson, he corrected, and that small correction cut deeper than anything else he'd said. We're not in a Jerome's faith in the whole operation, so he ate it, took the loss, let the case go cold, but he also cut me off completely, changed his number, told the other staff at the center that I wasn't welcome anymore. I heard from a friend that he'd cleared out my locker, boxed up everything I'd left there, and donated it to charity. My A-levels were a disaster. I barely scraped passes in 2 subjects and failed the third outright. The electrician course became a fantasy. I took a job at a warehouse stacking boxes for minimum wage and told myself it was temporary. Dwayne got arrested 6 months later, not for the burglaries, for something else, something bigger, involving people I'd never met. He didn't grass on me, family loyalty, I suppose. Or maybe he just knew I wasn't important enough to trade. I spent the next 3 years in a kind of limbo, working dead-end jobs, living with my mom until she finally told me she needed the room for her new boyfriend's kid, crashing on sofas, drinking more than I should, watching my life become exactly what everyone except Jerome had expected it to be. The lowest point came on a Tuesday night in November, 3 years after the confrontation. I was 21, unemployed again, sleeping on a mate's floor. I'd been awake for 40 hours, no particular reason, just couldn't sleep. I found myself walking through the city at 3 a.m., no destination in mind. I ended up outside the youth center. The lights were off, of course. The building looked smaller than I remembered. There was a new sign above the door, fresh paint, a slightly different logo, signs of life. Jerome was still running it, still trying to build something despite what I'd done to him. I sat on the curb across the street and stared at the building until the sun came up. When people started walking past, commuters, delivery drivers, early risers, I finally dragged myself away. But something had shifted. Not a dramatic epiphany, not a Hollywood moment of clarity, just a small, quiet thought. If Jerome could keep building after what I did, maybe I could build something too. I got a job at a call center. The work was soul-crushing, but it was steady. I rented a room in a shared house with strangers who didn't know my history. I started attending NA meetings, not for drugs specifically, but because someone told me they helped with self-destructive patterns of all kinds. I needed a structure for accountability, and those rooms provided one. I didn't try to contact Jerome, not yet. I wasn't ready. I hadn't earned it. But I started keeping a list, a mental inventory of everyone I'd helped hurt. Mr. Okonkwo at the newsagent, the storage unit owner, because I'd learned to read people, and that skill translates surprisingly well to customer retention. By the time I was 25, I was managing a small team. Not impressive by most standards, but for a kid from the estate with a failed education and a secret criminal past, it felt like a miracle. The therapist I started seeing, finally, after years of thinking I didn't need one, asked me once what I wanted. To be someone Jerome would be proud of again, I said, and then felt embarrassed by how childish it sounded. What would that look like? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe it's not even possible. Maybe what I did is unfixable. Some things are unfixable, she agreed, but that doesn't mean you can't build new things, that you can't become someone who adds to the world instead of taking from it. That phrase stuck with me, someone who adds instead of takes. It became a kind of mantra. I started volunteering, not at Jerome's center, that was still too raw, too close, but at a similar place on the other side of the city, a youth mentoring program for kids in care. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was trying to be for someone else what Jerome had been for me, even though I'd betrayed him. The first kid I worked with, a 14-year-old called Jamal, reminded me so much of myself at that age that it hurt. The anger, the distrust, the flashes of intelligence hidden under layers of attitude. Why should I listen to you? He asked in our first session. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I said. I don't, but I know what it's like to be where you are, and I know where it can lead if you don't have someone and you've been paying back the people you helped hurt, quietly, over the years. Okonkwo mentioned the envelopes. He didn't know who they were from, but I guessed. I don't forgive you. I want to be clear about that. What you did caused damage that's still being felt, but I recognize that you've been trying to become something different. That takes more effort than most people realize. If you want to talk, I'll be at the center on Saturday mornings. Come if you're ready. Don't come if you're not. Jerome. I read the letter 7 times. Then I sat on my bed and stared at the wall for an hour. On Saturday morning, I stood outside the youth center for 20 minutes before I could make myself go in. The building looked the same, the rusted basketball hoops, the leaning pool table, the smell of stale tea and industrial cleaner. Jerome was in his office, door open, reading something on his laptop. He looked up when I appeared in the doorway. Older now, 61. More gray, more lines, a slight stoop that hadn't been there before. Marcus, he said, not Mr. Cole. Not cold exactly, just neutral. Mr. Patterson, I said. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. I sat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, You look different. I'm trying to be different, I said. Trying's not being, he replied, but it's a start. The conversation that followed was one of the hardest of my life. He asked me questions I'd been dreading, not about the crimes themselves, but about the internal logic. What had I told myself to make it okay? When did I know I'd crossed a line? What made me keep going after I'd already compromised myself? I answered as honestly as I could. No excuses, no softening, just the ugly truth of my own rationalizations. At the end of it, he sat back and looked at me. I've thought about you a lot, he said. You were the closest I ever came to feeling like I'd actually saved someone. When it fell apart, I questioned everything. Maybe I'd been fooling myself the whole time. Maybe none of it mattered. It mattered, I said, my voice rough. What you did for me mattered. I just wasn't strong enough to hold on to it. That's an excuse, he said mildly. No, I said. It's an explanation. I'm responsible for my choices, but I'm also responsible for understanding why I made them so I don't make them again. He raised an eyebrow. That sounds like therapy talk. It is, I admitted. But it's also true. Another long silence. I can't be your mentor again, he said finally. That relationship is gone. Too much damage. I know, I said. But, he continued, there might be a place for something else? 2 people who knew each other once, trying to do right by the community now. Not friends, not mentor and mentee. Just colleagues maybe, working in the same direction. He held out his hand, the same hand that had been on my shoulder 100 times, guiding me, correcting me, believing in me. I shook it. You're not forgiven, he reminded me. I'm not asking to be, I said. I'm just asking to show up. Then show up, he said, consistently, for years, and we'll see what happens. That was 2 years ago. I've been showing up since then. Every Saturday morning at the center, plus an evening session midweek when I can make it. I'm not a mentor there, Jerome was clear about that boundary, but I help with logistics, maintenance, the unglamorous work that keeps the place running. I've also kept up my work with Jamal and the other kids on the south side. 3 of them are doing apprenticeships now. 1 is at college studying business. I'm not taking credit for that. They did the hard part. But I was present, and sometimes presence is enough. My relationship with Jerome is different. We're not close. We might never be close again, but we're in the same orbit, working toward the same goals. Some days, he looks at me, and I see the shadow of the old warmth. Other days, I see the memory of what I took from him. He said something to me last month that I keep turning over in my head. We were moving chairs after an event, the familiar physical work, and he stopped suddenly. I was wrong about you, he said. I braced for what came next. Not in the beginning, he continued. I was right about your potential. Right that you could be something. But I was wrong to think I could control the outcome. That if I just invested enough, believed enough, you'd automatically become who I wanted you to be. That's not, I started. Let me finish. He set down the chair he was carrying. People aren't projects. I told you that once. Turns out I didn't really believe it myself. I thought if I did everything right, you'd do everything right. That was arrogant. Your choices were never mine to make. But you did everything right, I said. I'm the one who... We both did things, he interrupted. You betrayed my trust. I put you on a pedestal and then blamed you for falling off. Neither of those is the whole story. I didn't know how to respond. The point is, he said, I've learned something from watching you these past 2 years. About second chances, about how long rebuilding actually takes. You're not the same person who sat in my office and admitted to selling out the community. That person couldn't have kept showing up like this. I'm still him, I said. That's what I've learned. He's not gone. He's just quieter. Jerome nodded slowly. Maybe that's the best any of us can do, he said. Keep the worst parts of ourselves quiet. Let the better parts lead. We finished moving the chairs in silence. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I don't tell it for absolution. I tell it because I spent years pretending I wasn't the person who betrayed Jerome Patterson, and that pretense nearly destroyed me. The truth is simpler and harder. I was that person. I might still become that person again if I stopped being vigilant, but I don't have to be that person tomorrow. That's the choice I make every day in small acts of showing up and staying honest. I still have the shoebox under my bed. Not with cash anymore. That's long gone, paid back or donated, or just vanished into the chaos of those years. Now it holds the letter Jerome sent me, a photo of Jamal at his apprenticeship graduation, and a list. Enough.